Now here's a game I've been wanting to complete for more than half my life, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. I've had access to a couple other Goemon games I could have covered on this channel first, but for me, I had to start with this one. This was one of the many N64 games we rented from our local video shop back when I was 5, and the only game we had was Super Mario 64, one of few we rented twice actually. I didn't get very far either time, and after returning it, I never remembered its name, but I always vaguely remembered that N64 game with the spiky haired guy and his silly friend. It was only when I was 12 and I discovered a game station, back when they were still around, that sold games from before the current generation, PS2, GameCube, Xbox at the time, around where my grandparents used to shop weekly. They had this game for months, and that's how I finally got to find out its name, and I bought that copy with some of my 13th birthday money. So I finally owned the game, but I could never finish it because it's one of those games that requires the N64 control pack. One of the worst memory cards I have had to deal with, and the only ones I'd had never lasted long. But I would still constantly play this game from the beginning, slowly getting a bit further most times before I'd have to turn it off and lose all my progress. The last time I did so I was probably still 13 or maybe 14, so it's been at least 16 years since I last touched this game. That changed when I finally went and bought one of those new custom control packs that are supposed to last 100 years or whatever, so now I could finally record this game without the risk of the memory card dying mid-playthrough. But before we move on, that intro brought me back. At the time I had no idea the singer was Hironobu Kageyama, the guy who sung exactly 12,000 Dragon Ball Z songs. Enough of my life story though, let's start the game. We see everyone in Oedo Town just living their lives until Goemon and his friend Ebisumaru are kicked out of a shop, because Ebisumaru thought that stripping off in the middle of a shop would get him a discount. As they debate its effectiveness, a huge peach-shaped spaceship flies overhead. And this is feudal Japan, though in this series something like this is not exactly an uncommon sight. It heads towards Oedo Castle where the Lord and Princess Yuki live. Some dude called Baron on the ship reports their arrival, and a mysterious man and woman have a good chuckle while the ship fires a laser at the castle. The Lord and Princess are engulfed, and when the light fades, they find that the beam has transformed Oedo Castle into a European-style castle. That was stage 1 of the Mystery Pairs plan, and they fly off. Goemon and Ebisumaru can't believe the Lord's castle was targeted yet again, and they run off to deal with it. We begin gameplay in Goemon's house since Ebisumaru had to go back and get dressed. Goemon starts with 2 weapons, the smoking pipe he hits his enemies with, and our money. He can throw the ryo he carries as a projectile. I try to avoid using the ryo unless I really need to, so I'll be sticking with the pipe. I leave the house and get exploring Oedo Town. The first woman I talk to outside says that someone will be moving into one of the neighbouring houses soon, but it'll be a while before that fact becomes relevant. But yeah, no one's really that fussed about the whole alien attack thing. In one of the houses I get to learn that the reason one of the houses is empty is that Mokubei the pipe maker used to live there, but he's since moved inside of Mount Fuji. Back outside I can pick up some money in the water, each coin being worth 5 ryo. I can also freely swap between Goemon and Ebisumaru, who right now just has a hammer and his more eccentric animations when moving. I then go through the door to the right when leaving Goemon's house. This street is mainly filled with shops. I don't actually bother with them much because the game isn't that hard, so I'm not wasting money on temporary power-ups. The inns are important though, as that's where you can save your game. But yeah, the people in this world are just odd, so it's a bit like a mother game, where you want to talk to everyone you can just to see the terrible puns and insane anachronisms they come out with. Every town has a coffee shop, and this one is kind of important as inside we can talk to Omitsu, Goemon's girlfriend. I didn't know about this since I just always had the first chunk of the game's progression burned into my mind, so I just beeline past all early NPC stuff. Fans seem to despise Omitsu, but based on this game I can't see why. I presume it's mainly for shipping reasons, as there's always been a far more prominent woman who's consistently playable unlike her, who has never been. I go through the big door opposite the coffee shop, but that leads out of town and the gatekeepers aren't having it. I jump off the side of the bridge and swim along the canal to this platform containing my first Silver Fortune doll. These are the game's equivalent to a heart piece from Zelda. Collect 4 to gain an extra heart to my maximum health. I swim through a tunnel nearby and on the next screen climb up the ladder. The woman up here says that the bridge to Oedo Castle has been destroyed. I go through the door and, sure enough, no bridge. Just these star blocks that a sign says I can attach to with a chain pipe. Well, I don't have one of those, and the pipe maker's gone off to Mount Fuji, so it looks like that's my first destination. Back through the door I cross the bridge to another door to another area of town. There's a guy who will give me directions to Mount Fuji, but even 16 years later, that route is burned into my mind. I keep going through the red gate and turn right to go through the door there. There's only one building on this screen, the fortune tellers. Another of the images that always stuck with me from those first rentals was the fortune teller, Plasma Man. You don't forget Plasma Man. We won't be seeing much of him though. Round the corner from this place, Dog's Talk by the way, is the door leading out of town, where we get hit by the theme to Kai Highway. I'd say one of the most iconic N64 music tracks outside of Nintendo stuff. I get my first enemies here, a robot doll that fights by just running into me, and the weird floating biting lion head thing. By just heading in a straight line from the entrance, I can reach the only building in this area, Kai's coffee shop. There's a travel merchant in here who'll sell me a map of Japan for a discount. After accepting his offer, he's so happy he just lets me have the map for free. I'm not sure if I've ever obtained this before since I usually just ignored the coffee shop to get through the beginning parts I was repeating quicker. I also learned that Goemon's giant robot friend Impact has become a big movie star in the US, centuries before movies or the US would exist, so that's pretty impressive. I can look at the map of the game's world through the pause menu. Not that useful overall, but I still needed it for the 100%. Going north from the coffee shop, I can cross this bridge. I get a variant of the robot dolls, this one being green and holding a box that opens up to shoot cannonballs. I can see the door I need to go through, but first I cross another bridge to the east, and in the northeast corner of the screen is my second Silver Fortune doll. I then go back and jump up the steps to this door. It leads to Mount Fuji. I climb the ladder right in front of me and get running across the wooden floor. Up here is my first Scarecrow turret, fires 2 shots at once but can't move. I go past the next ladder and jump to the next platform where I get hit by a falling boulder and find my third Silver Fortune doll. I then go back and climb that ladder to the next floor. On this one I have more boulders to avoid while jumping across the platforms. Dropping down when I reach the next ladder has me find these golden dumplings, which are a full heal. I go back up and up the next ladder, then across a short floor to another ladder. This floor has sections that rotate, but they're slow enough that it's not a problem. Then at the end I can enter the mountain. I have to climb these stairs while avoiding these spring things. I have no clue what they are or what to call them, but you can't damage them, only avoid them and climb past. I next have another rotating bridge to cross and more steps with springs to climb up to reach the exit and end up back outside. I run across this next floor to another ladder to the next floor, which is about half or a third the width of the rest. It leads to one last ladder to another door back inside. In the middle here is the new house Mokube has moved to. You pick your spots, don't you? Ask him why he even did it and he says he moved here to train to be Japan's best worker. I next ask him to do said job and make me a pipe, so he gives me the chain pipe. Used for attaching to star blocks, it can also be used as a weapon, but it only extends out in a straight line as opposed to the swinging motion of the normal pipe, so it's a bit awkward. But now I can get into Oedo Castle. Wanna know another great thing about this game? No fall damage. Return to Oedo Town and the original music, an instrumental version of the opening song, is replaced with the track you hear in Mokube's house in the coffee shops once you get the chain pipe. I never got why this change was made to happen, but the original only plays for that short amount of time, so it's a shame to lose it. Travelling back to the castle, I have to deal with the pickpocket on this screen. If you don't hit him first, he'll steal 50 Ryo from you. Back to the screen with the star blocks, I first chain over the blocks on the left, then walk around the wall to reach my 4th Silver Fortune doll and get my health increase. I then take the blocks on the right to reach the remains of the bridge and go through the door at the end. I have to run up a few hills and through a door to the next screen, where the entrance to Oedo Castle is. I can also save my game by reading the castle's sign next to the door. I then enter. So, transformed Oedo Castle, the first dungeon. First thing I do? Well, the first room has all these jars I can smash open for a lot of money. So I break them, leave, and come back in over the next few minutes until I've built up over 1000 Ryo. I then go through the door opposite the entrance. To the right in this room is a door with a silver lock, and to the left are a few pits to chain across to find the silver key that unlocks it. Falling into a pit just results in reloading the room and taking minor damage. I unlock the door into this room with a huge fence surrounding a pool. I start by running across the first board to find the Mr. Elephant at the end. These give me access to the dungeon map. Jumping into the water, I can swim across to this moving platform and ride it to another Silver Fortune doll. Before continuing, I go back the way I came and through the door I skipped. This room is filled with the dolls, including the larger Brute doll that takes 2 hits to kill. Taking out the enemies spawns a silver key. I take it to the pool and swim across to the other end to reach another fenced off area and use that key to unlock the next door. This room has another locked door at the end, but as I run across it, the mats on the floor rise up and try flying into me. Destroying 3 of them spawns another silver key right in front of the door. In the next room I run right to end up through another door already. I run through the doll-filled corridor to the next room, which is another one where I have to kill all the enemies. These ones spawn me a gold key when I take them all out. Going back 2 rooms, and this room was the furthest I made it on my first rental because I couldn't cross this gap. I was still getting used to 3D games back then, and so the concept of jump closer and then use the chain didn't occur to me. I go past the locked door and through the one next to it first. It has a full heal and more pots filled with coins. I then go through that locked door with the gold key. The room seems empty, except for this lift in the corner I ride up to find what looks like massive rows of dumplings running along the floor cleaning it, I think. What I also notice is they use the same sound effect as the penguin's footsteps in Super Mario 64. Then through the door at the other end to reach a room with a locked door at the other end and some crushers dropping down. But first I go through this unlocked side door. It has another new enemy in these drummers flinging out more cannonballs. More important is another silver fortune doll in the back. In the previous room I wait for a crusher and then jump on top and ride it up. I get on the middle one at the top to find a silver key and unlock the door. This next room has me running across a narrow floor above the pool dealing with scarecrow turrets and spinning rows of spiked walls. About 2/3 of the way across I go through this door. This room has me chaining across more blocks to reach the next door. There's a door here and further on a giant hand blocking my access to the other half. I'll deal with that later, but first I go through the door. This room has another, more aggressive doll that not only runs but also tries to jump into me. I don't actually have to kill the enemies in this room as the silver key is already out in the open. Now to backtrack to that last pool room and go the rest of the way. Right in front of the door is this dungeon's Mr. Arrow, which places the boss's location on the map. Unlock the door and the next room has more of the cleaner dumplings and this new ninja that drops from the ceiling to throw shurikens at me. Into the next room and I just go forward to the next door. This room is mostly a huge pit, with the only way to cross being to wait for the crushers to drop and cross over them while they rise back up. Do that to get to the next room and ride one more lift to the top where Baron from the opening is waiting for us. When Goemon asks who he is, Baron introduces himself and says he's here to turn Oedo Castle into a beautiful stage. Goemon doesn't get it, and Ibisamaru suggests getting him by the throat and roughing him up, calling him a weirdo. Baron takes offence to that, and also there's a laugh track at certain points. I have no idea if the jokes were lost in translation or if they're deliberately bad and that's the point, so I do kind of just get confused at times. Baron spins off and I follow him through the doors, finding another silver fortune doll just in the open on the way. Through one last door to the boss arena. Remember that giant hand blocking off a path earlier? Well, here's the head, Congo. He starts by breathing fire at me, but since his head is locked in one spot and he can only spin, it's easy to avoid. Once he stops I just have to get my hits in on the glowing weak spot on his chin. I get enough hits in to break a chunk of his head off and he starts spinning the 4 lasers on his base around. Once again they're easy to avoid and I get a load of hits in while he's preparing his next fire breath. After that I smash a huge chunk off the other side of his head. Do it all again and the next lot explodes off the back of his head. A 4th time and his entire right eye no longer exists. I then do it a 5th time and then a 6th to finish him off. He's an easy enough first boss that even 16 years without playing, I took him out without taking damage. On death he leaves an item behind called the Miracle Moon, but we have no idea what it does yet. I have one last door to go through and there's the Lord and Princess Yuki. Goemon asks what happened and the Lord describes what we saw in the opening cutscene. Goemon asks where Baron went off to and Yuki says he rushed off. The Lord asks Goemon and Ibisamaru to track down and catch the ones responsible for all this. They accept and the Lord grants them the Super Pass so that we can finally leave Oedo Town through that door the gatekeepers were blocking me from. I'm walked back outside but I go straight back in. Remember Congo's giant hand blocking that room? Well, with him dead, it's not there anymore. I chain across a pit and go through another door. This last room has a floor filled with coins and my 8th silver fortune doll, getting me my 2nd health upgrade. I then leave. These last 50 minutes I played so many times back when I was 13, and I never got bored of it. Back in town it looks like everyone's bored of alien invasions already. I return to that bridge with the gatekeepers and show them my super pass. You know, as a kid I was always expecting N64 games to be much shorter than they'd actually turn out to be. So after clearing Oedo Castle on my 2nd rental and entering Musashi, I was certain I was at the end of the game. Despite seeing 2 other playable characters in the opening I hadn't even met in game yet. Going left from the door takes me to this grate I can run underneath for another silver fortune doll. Up the slope nearby is a metal box I can't do anything with, keeping me from going that way. To the right from the door is another door. It leads into this tunnel that's pretty straightforward and I cross through it to the door at the other end. This takes me to the Shimano Iga crossing. It's a huge field with many steps to jump up at the other end. It's a little maze-like and you have to be careful to avoid landing on the slopes if you don't want to go sliding back down. But I reach the top and get running along the path while the sun sets. I can see a large house in the distance and so I just keep running along towards it. But then as I get closer, the house explodes. Goemon rushes over to find the Triton shell in the rubble, the item that summons the giant robot Impact. That can only mean that this house belonged to the series regular, the Wise Old Man. Of course, for someone who this is their first game, which for PAL players it most likely is, you have no idea who this guy is. It turns out that Baron is behind it. Goemon is so angry that he calls Baron a weirdo in a larger font. Either way, Baron's gonna squash them with his giant robot. So Goemon combats him by blowing into a Triton shell and being beamed aboard the gigantic robot, Goemon Impact, complete with his own vocal theme song. That's the second one so far. It was rare for N64 games in 1997 to even get one. Plus we get the cool sequence showing all of Impact's innards and how he works mechanically like it's a Sentai or Power Rangers robot coming together. It's cool. When I first rented, I saw Impact in the opening and didn't make the connection he was a giant robot, so his vacant eyes and wide open mouth stare were off-putting to me until I found out he wasn't human. After that sequence we get the roller skating part. I have to smash up as much of the country and the enemy machines as possible to build up Ryo for the upcoming fight. I also have to make sure I jump pits, jump over bridges and destroy huge buildings, as colliding with Eva will result in Impact being smashed into pieces, and while I wait for him to drop back in I miss out on vital Ryo gathering time. Despite you seeing me getting smashed up a lot, I really enjoy the Impact stuff in general. Roller skating a giant robot through the past destroying stuff with a cool theme song doesn't get old, but eventually I reach the end and the real battle starts. Baron's robot is the Kabuki themed Kashiwagi. Impact's most basic abilities are being able to punch, shoot lasers at the cost of Ryo, and use a giant chain pipe to grapple the boss and pull them in for a beating, like a few punches ending with a kick. Impact has many more secret moves, but for this fight I forgot to look up how to pull them off. I'll know in time for the next Impact battle though. Kashiwagi mainly fights by firing missiles that I can punch out for 5 Ryo each. He'll also try rushing into me with either boards or his palm, but I either catch him with a fist or the chain pipe first. He's also got this weird attack where he creates a projection of himself to fight for him while he hangs back, but you can punch it out as well. So on my second rental, the last time I played the game before rebuying it as a teenager, this was as far as I got. Rentals didn't come with the manuals and I had no way of figuring out how Impact works, so I just could not defeat Kashiwagi, and by the time we had to return the game, my 5 or 6 year old self was half convinced he was fighting the final boss. So when I got the game again and finally beat him at 13, it was one of the earliest I really am actually getting better at games moments I can remember. I actually do a bit worse here than I used to do on later playthroughs back then since I'm so out of practice, but I still win in the end first try and Kashiwagi is destroyed. Now that's what you want staring at you when you're being caught in an explosion. Impact drops Goemon off where he picked him up and sets off back to America to continue working on his film. All I can do now is continue along the road to reach the door to the town at the end. This is the entrance to Zazen Town. I pass through the gate in the middle and Yae, a secret agent ninja and regular playable character, jumps down. She's been following the peach-shaped UFO and had an inkling she'd run into Goemon. A narrator cuts in and explains that she's been investigating a number of strange events across Japan that all seem to have something to do with the mysterious Flake Gang. But all Yae has found out is that the higher ranked ones like Baron call themselves the Peach Mountain Shoguns. After Goemon makes crap fruit based jokes with their name, Yae agrees to join up, giving me the option to play as her as well. Right now she just has her katana, but I'll talk about her more when I get near some enemies as her. I go through the next door and I just adore Zazen Town's music. It's one of those tracks that I feel evokes that feeling of nostalgia even when you're hearing it for the first time. It's how I felt hearing it for the first time back in 2005. Across the bridge and through the door to enter one side of town. The dog here lets me know that Zazen Town is in the Kansai region, and that by playing this game I can become an expert on Japanese geography. Well, sadly I retained none of that knowledge by the time I was done. I've already wasted my lifetime's geography knowledge on memorising several Final Fantasy World maps. Talking to the humans gets me more distressing news, as many kids with dancing talent have been kidnapped in the Shikoku region. Even some kids from here have gone missing too. Going through the door on the left to the Gojo Ohashi Bridge, I am blocked by Benkei. He demands we hand over all our treasures if we want to cross the bridge. I decline and instead drop down below into the Duck Creek and run through the tunnel on the left. I jump up the steps to talk to this guy at the top and ask who he is, to be told his name is Ushiwaka. I even ask if he knows Benkei, who he says is like a follower to him. He figures out that we're asking because we need to deal with him. He'll help, but we have to do something to him first. He wants some fish from the creek. First free bluefish. So I just have to run around the surrounding screens in the water and walk into the fish he wants. 2 in this starting screen and then 1 more in the next one. Next he wants 5 yellow fish. 1 on the starting screen, 1 on the next, and 3 in the end screen with the waterfall. Finally he wants 8 red fish. 1 on the starting screen, 2 on the next, then 1 on the end screen. Back to the starting screen and take the other exit for 2 on the screen Benkei is on, then to the next one for the last 2. I hand all the fish over to Ushiwaka and he gives me the Achilles heel, telling me to just chuck it at Benkei. So I return to Benkei, and when he threatens me again, he can tell I'm ready for a fight. The narrator tells me to throw the Achilles heel the moment Benkei lands on the ground from a jump. I have to hit him 3 times within 50 seconds, and that's plenty of time. Do it too late and he jumps over it, do it too early and he blocks it. I get the first 2 hits easily, but the third takes until I have 25 seconds left. Benkei is gutted to be defeated in the exact same way he was by Ushikawa. In exchange for not telling anyone he lost to us, he'll not just allow us free unlimited usage of the bridge, but he'll also give us something from his collection. It turns out to be the Robot Ninja Sasuke, another series regular and the final playable character, but he's deactivated. Benkei obtained him when he fell out of the sky following the explosion at the wise old man's house. The explosion would have... I misspelled shut. The explosion would have shit him down. God, why are you and I right next to each other? The explosion would have shut him down and wrecked his batteries. So we have Sasuke and he's on the pause menu as if he's in our party, but we can't play as him yet. Before crossing the bridge I go back into town, up the steps and through the door at the north. There's a little pond in here but we won't be doing anything with that just yet. But I can hit this thing to the side of it until it gives me another silver fortune doll. Out the other side I can explore the other side of town too, but there isn't much relevant yet, mainly many doors to future locations. Through one door to a bridge is a guy telling me that the door here that leads to Bizen is locked as a result of some kid messing around with it. I finally go through the door behind Benkei to reach Yamato, another place with great music. I go down the slopes and pass by the huge temple here, which is locked. There are 2 paths to exits from the temple and I take the one on the right. It leads to the Yamato Turtle Stone Bamboo Shrine. At the shrine there is a rock I can push in each of the cardinal directions, each with signs letting me know which is which and a hint of what will happen when I push the rock that way. First I push the rock to the south to get myself another silver fortune doll. I leave the rest for now and go back to the main Yamato screen, then take the path on the left. It leads to a separate bamboo forest screen with whatever these things flying around are. It's a short screen filled with enemies and I make my way to the other side. I come out on the path from the key channel to Awaji Island. Once I make it out of the tunnel I can see this building on the edge of a cliff, but first there's the key coffee shop to enter. A woman inside tells me that the other building is the tourist centre of Awaji Island that can transport me anywhere. But before going there, I realise my brain fart with leaving the turtle shrine when I did and go back. I push the rock to the east which teleports me to this tiny island on the key Awaji screen. I then run through the red gate here to be teleported onto a boat. I swim over to the nearby rocks which the sign tells me are the husband and wife rocks. I cross the bridge from the smaller rock to the bigger rock and then climb to the top of it to find my 12th silver fortune doll and my 3rd health upgrade. Running through the gate here puts me closer to the shore, so I swim back to land and get running along this cliff to reach the Awaji Tourist Centre. Halfway along I can drop down to the left to another silver fortune doll already. I finally use Yae and the reason she's my favourite to play as is simple. Just the sound effect and the perfectly clean slice in half and watching the halves bounce about for a second is just so satisfying. I go inside the tourist centre and the woman inside says they can carry us straight to Shikoku with their dragon. Or he could if the dragon hadn't gone wild and become unrideable. We offer to help and they send us into the machine that transports us onto the dragon's back. We can just barely see a machine on the dragon's head. However, this dragon is pretty long and we're dropped off right at the end of his tail. As I run along it I have the lion heads and the things from the bamboo forest coming for me. But I reach the end and find the culprit behind the dragon's turn. Through a speaker on the machine we can hear another of the Peach Mountain Shoguns, Colon. He confirms that using the machine, they've had control over the dragon and have been using him to kidnap kids with dancing talent. We also get confirmation that Baron survived Kashiwagi's destruction, as he managed to tell the others about the party and how annoying he finds them. With that I have to take on the control machine. It spins around shooting cannonballs, the yellow glow meaning it's invincible. Once it slows down, the glow wears off and I can give it a good whack. It then repeats the spinning and shooting, with each hit making its fire slightly more aggressive. In the end it takes 6 hits to defeat and the resulting explosion sends the dragon into freefall. But it's fine, as I said earlier, this game has no fall damage and we land at Kompira Mountain in Sanuki. The dragon lands a bit more violently though, and in his human form, Koryuta. He has no idea what has been going on since the Shoguns took control of him. They fill him in on what he did and he's pretty upset to find out, thinking he's evil for what they made him do. While they try to cheer him up, Yae asks if he remembers anything at all, like where he took the kids. He just barely remembers the Dogo Hot Springs to the west at Iyo. Goemon reassures him that he will save the kids, saying that Koryuta should go back to doing his job. In return, Koryuta gives them his flute, saying that if they play that flute, he will pick them up and drop them off at most of the places they've already visited, this game's version of fast travel. Goemon can't play the flute though, and when choosing between Abisamaru and Yae, he lets Yae have it with no second thoughts. Koryuta reminds me that he can only hear the flute outdoors and then takes off. Well, since I'm here at Kompira Mountain, I may as well climb it. This is 1997, so we're still in the time of stairs requiring constant jumps to climb. At the top I go through the door to reach the second block, where there are boulders dropping down the stairs. I just jump my way up the stairs to reach the door to the third block. Here the stairs are littered with the small cannon enemy. They're no threat, and at the top of the stairs is a coffee shop. Gotta enter them all to get them as dragon travel locations. I then go through the gate next to it to reach the fourth block. I have to avoid both boulders and small cannons up 2 flights of stairs until I reach the red gate at the top. This takes me to the Compira Shrine. I check out the little tourist hut next to it where the guy inside tells me to offer 5 Ryo to the shrine to get help from God. So I do. I aggressively throw 5 coins into the box for the God of Money to grant me the ability to light the rest of my money on fire with the Medal of Flames. By charging a Ryo throw, I can throw a fiery Ryo for the trade-off with it costing 5 Ryo instead of 1. I have an uneventful trek back down the mountain and go through the door next to where I started. This puts me in Fokipoke Village in Awa. The first woman I speak to says the village is famous for its dancing, so you better believe this place was hit hard by the child kidnappings. I go through the door on the opposite corner to reach their farm. I can't do much in here yet, and so I go down and through the next door. On this screen, a guy claims to have a reward for those who save the kidnapped kids. Through the next door and more people talking about the missing children. I then leave town through the door up the stairs to end up in Tosa. I follow the road, down the hill and across the bridge. Then to the left and up this hill to the door the road ends at. This takes me to the Vine Bridge. This bridge kicks my arse. It makes you let your guard down by putting gaps in the bridge so you think you know when to jump, but then more planks will fall out underneath and you fall into the river if you don't react in time. There's also a silver fortune doll on a rock underneath the bridge and I spend a while trying to fall through the right spot to land on it, but I get it eventually. I then get across that bridge and through the door at the end, taking me into Iyo. I follow the road here as it goes uphill and then at the top is a sign saying that the Dogo Hot Springs are to the left. But first I finish following that road until I reach the Iyo coffee shop to add it as a fast travel location. One guy says that he saw a tiny hole next to the hot springs entrance that only a dwarf could fit inside. Another says that the hot springs are closed though. One woman says that she saw a dwarf in Zazentown. So I use the flute for the first time and walk back to Zazentown. If I have one complaint about the flute, it's that I wish I could skip the animation with Koryuta's flying. It gets old quick seeing it every time I want to fast travel. So we're not actually looking for a literal dwarf here. If we return to Ushiwaka, he's suddenly tiny. He tells me he achieved this by eating 8 sweets in a row from the Golden Temple. He says if I want that power as well, to meet him there. The Golden Temple is on the opposite side of town through this door. Ushiwaka is waiting and has the narrator explain the upcoming minigame to me. But I can explain over the footage of me playing it. I'm a Bisumaru in the temple's cupboard and I have just under 100 seconds to collect 8 sweets when they drop from the ceiling. Every few seconds the cupboard will open and this abomination will have a look around. If they see me, they'll shake the cupboard throwing a tantrum and damaging objects will fall down. I also have to avoid being hit 3 times, but it's fine as I manage it without getting hit with 32 seconds remaining. With this, Ebisumaru has learned the Mini Ebisu skill and can shrink whenever he wants. The downside is that while small, he can't attack. Before I return to those hot springs, I want to use this new skill to pick up some new items. Back in the Yamato Turtle Shrine, I push the rock north to be warped to the temple in the main screen with its doors now open. This place is just a lot of climbing. After the first ladder there are these platforms I can jump across, but if I shrink and drop through the gap underneath them, I can land on a platform with a silver fortune doll. It takes a few attempts to get the fall right before I can get it. The rest of the climb up is just very basic platform jumping and ladder climbing. On the way up I can grab a surprise pack that grants me an extra life. You can buy these, but there are also a few like this hidden away for free throughout the world. Also at the top is another silver fortune doll. That's my 16th, meaning my 4th health expansion. Next up I return to the farm in Fokipoke Village. One of the haystacks has another silver fortune doll hidden underneath it that only Mini Ebisu can reach. That's all, and I walk back to Iyo's coffee shop and do a short walk from it to the Dogo Hot Springs. The doors are in fact locked, so I have Ebisumaru shrink and go through this tiny hole. This takes me to the screen, Iyo 2. The first thing I find here are these little fire breathing things. Following this road all the way to the end takes me to the hot spring, where I can crouch in it for a few seconds to heal. But halfway along that path is a tunnel off to the side. I have to shrink under the grating, then run along these slopes to reach a ladder. I then have to use a chain pipe to cross these platforms. Once I turn the corner, I drop through the first gap to find another silver fortune doll. I make my way back up and jump the gaps this time, going uphill to the door to the second dungeon, the Ghost Toys Castle. I can't damage the ghosts here yet, but first I have to light these Daruma torches with my flaming Ryo to open the door to the next room. Right away there's a crane game and a camera to win, but with no power on I can't operate it. So I go through the next door. The next room has rows of spikes rising and advancing from the floor. They're easy enough to jump over and I reach the next door. The next room is filled with small cannons. I run forward until I reach a fork, then keep jumping forward and up the platform to this big head thing where there's another silver fortune doll. Then left of the fork takes me to the next room. This one has me running along and jumping across a narrow path filled with rising and lowering spikes. On the way through is this dungeon's Mr. Elephant. Then I cross the rest of it to the next door. This room has a new enemy, some bouncing Daruma dolls. There's also this strange seed I can pick up in one of the corners. Killing all the dolls in here spawns a silver key. But before unlocking the door, I take the seed to this lift and ride it to the top of this machine. I drop it in the soil at the top and it grows into a flower that spits out many coins. Then unlocking and through that door. This next room has me jumping across what I think are giant shogi tiles. The door to the left is unlocked and the one opposite the entrance is locked. But near that locked door is a very narrow tightrope I can try to walk across. It takes a couple tries and in the end I rely on Mini Ibisu to make it easier. At the end is a golden fortune doll. If the silver ones are the heart pieces, these are the full heart containers and grant a health upgrade on their own. This has me halfway to maximum health now. I then take that unlocked door. This room has a lift that lowers when jumped on. It leads to more shogi tiles to jump across. On the way I can see a small cage under the water, but I can't do anything to reach it for a while. I just keep following the tiles until I reach another lift at the end going up. Through the door at the top and I'm back in the second room with the crane game, but behind one of the walls. I can grab a silver key here and my 20th silver fortune doll for another health increase. I also jump on this switch to restore power to the crane, so I jump over the fence and try it out. I just have to step on the buttons to get it to work. It can be quite picky and not grab the camera even if it's making contact, but I get it on my third try. I drop it out and grab it. The wind-up camera is an item for Abisumaru. Using this will have the flash reveal hidden items, along with making the ghost enemies solid and killable. With that and my new key, I return to the room with the golden fortune doll and unlock the door in the back. Right away in the next room I grab this dungeon's Mr. Arrow, now to take out all those ghosts. One thing to remember is that you need to hold the button to charge the camera for a couple seconds first. I manage to wipe them all out at once when they gather around me. I then jump up this red tube thing to the left. At this point the dungeon starts to gain more instruments in its music. Transformed Uedo Castle had this as well, but it's more noticeable here. I really like this touch. I reach these platforms with the rising spikes, but first take a door on the left. It's filled with ghosts and taking them all out gets me another silver key. Back in the last room and I jump across the spikes to use that key on the door at the end. The next room has what I assume are supposed to be little tin soldiers or something walking around. I go up the stairs here and reach another lift that takes me up to another locked door and an unlocked one to the left. Through that one is a room where up the ramp is a row of moving, spinning top platforms. Have to be careful as the red water underneath them is damaging to be in if you fall into it. I found the first jump tricky and it took a few tries, but the rest of them were easy and I grabbed the silver key at the end and then use it on the door in the previous room. The following room is a massive spinning platforms all over the place, but first I jump in the water and swim to the middle of the room to find another silver fortune doll. I can also skip a lot of the platforming from here and ride the nearest platforms to the doors on the left or right. The door on the left is locked, so I ride to the unlocked door on the right. This is a simple kill all the enemies room for the next silver key. I then ride the tops to the locked door to the left of it in the previous room. I ignore the rest of this room for now and go through the door opposite from where I entered. It just has pots with money and health, so I go back and jump across all these skipping ropes to reach the door on the other end. Using the camera in this room reveals all the invisible holes in the floor so that I can safely cross to grab the gold key and the surprise pack in the corner. Back to the spinning platform room and directly across from the door I've returned from is the door with the gold lock. In this next room another extra bit is added to the music. There's a locked door all the way at the end and an unlocked one halfway I go through. It leads to the giant pool table. I have to whack all the balls into the pockets in order, with the game helpfully putting an arrow over the next ball I have to pocket. It's easy enough and gives me a silver key for the locked door in this room, not the one in the previous room. This one is filled with spinning spiked balls, ghosts, small cannons and narrow paths. But it's also a very small room so it doesn't take long to reach the diamond key at the end. I go back 2 rooms and use it to unlock the dungeon's final door. There's a sign telling me how to damage the upcoming boss and I ride the lift up. Waiting for me is a giant Daruma doll. It reveals itself to be a robot with legs and claws, Darumanyo. It'll jump towards me and swing a claw, but it's slow so I can easily avoid it. To damage it I have to use the camera to reveal its weak point, a massive beating heart. I then give the heart a whack before it jumps back and recovers. At this point it actually starts damaging me by shooting missiles at me. I'm too close to avoid them since I was too busy focusing on charging the camera. But the heart is revealed again and gets another hammering. It counters this by trying to stab me with both claws at once, but once again it's easy to avoid. Then comes the next heart attack. After that it just starts cycling between those 3 attacks, and on the 10th hit it explodes, leaving behind another strange object like Kongo did, this one the Miracle Flower. One of the Peach Mountain Shoguns reveals himself, and it's Colon, the one using the control machine on Koryuta. He has a whine, saying that he was only teaching the kids the Peach Mountain style of dancing. We're then interrupted by a hologram of the mystery man from the intro. Goemon asks who he is, and he introduces himself as the leader of the Peach Mountain Shoguns, but then drags on when it comes to his name due to doing it through song. He eventually reveals his full name as Spring Breeze Dancing. When Goemon asks what Dancing has up his sleeves, we get to see that he's just as out there as our main too. He also just decides that Abisamaru is called Antonio, Colon saying that Dancing decides what he's going to call everyone he meets just based on what he feels fits that person. He tells Colon to withdraw, deciding that Goemon's name is now Fernandez. Colon does drop that their goal is called the Great Stage Plan before he leaves, saying that we should under no circumstances go to the Chugoku region, definitely not. We never actually see the kids in this place, but they are returned home off screen. So, the Chugoku region is next. At this point, it's now time to get Sasuke fixed up too. We've been carrying his lifeless body around long enough. I start by fast travelling back to Zazen Town. Remember the screen with the bridge where the one guy was complaining about a kid jamming the door? Well, we've saved that kid now. He'd built a safety stopper system into the door, and with him back, we can open the door. It leads to Kurashiki in Bizen. As I follow the path available to me, there's a locked door here, and then further on a cracked wall I can't destroy yet, and across the bridge there's another one. I then cross another bridge and go through the door there, taking me to Izumo. I can go left or right here and choose to go right. I follow the path all the way to the end here and go through the next door. It takes me to a dune in Inaba. We won't be seeing much of this place really. I follow the path in the sand, meeting new enemies. There's the kites flying around and more cannonball spitting enemies rising from the sand. Checking the map, I start in the northwest and I want to reach the oasis in the southeast. It's a non-eventful trip, but when I reach the oasis I can swim to this giant battery in the middle, being Sasuke's #1 battery, just need another. There's also another Silver Fortune doll in the water as well. I then just go back the way I came and return to Izumo. I then follow the road all the way to the other end on the left, stopping in its coffee shop to register it with Koryuta. A woman inside says she saw a big electric tube on top of a huge tree behind the Izumo shrine at the top of the mountain. She asks me to take a photo of it. Back outside, I go back right a bit and up the road going up the mountain until I reach the shrine at the top and go through the door. It leads to the lake with a big tree. Surrounding the tree are a load of platforms and I climb all the way to the top of the tree using them. I use the camera like the woman in the coffee shop suggested and it makes Sasuke's #2 battery appear. With the batteries obtained, Sasuke is active again. He has no idea what's been happening, and when Goemon asks if he remembers the explosion that knocked his batteries out, he says he has a glitch in his memory that he'll have to get the wise old man to fix. That's when they fill him in on the wise old man's house exploding and him having not been seen since. He wants revenge on the Peach Mountain Shoguns responsible for his death and joins the party. Sasuke can fight with his kunai and cut enemies in half like Yae can. He can throw them at the cost of Ryo, and he can also throw bombs that can destroy cracked walls. This is only my second time playing as Sasuke since I only got far enough without saving to play as him once. But he's gonna have to wait until next episode as I'm cutting it off here. It's been such a good time getting to relive this after so many years. Without the knowledge all my progress will be lost when I turn the game off. But next episode, almost everything past this point I'll be playing for the first time. And we're back to finish off Mystical Ninja starring Fernandez. They ended the previous part with us having revived Sasuke after completing the game's second dungeon. Sasuke is also pretty fun by just having the same cut in half effect on smaller enemies that Yae has. First I return to Kurashiki in Bizen to use Sasuke's bombs on the cracked walls to destroy them. One of them gets me a golden fortune doll for an extra heart to my health, the other one gets me a silver fortune doll. Opposite the door leading to Izumo is a door to the road from Aki to Nagato. Following the road takes me to a bridge, but as I reach it I jump off it to the north and go up this hill, then along the long narrow path at the top, at one point having to use the mini Ebisu to get across. At the end is my 24th silver fortune doll for even more health. I jump into the water and swim all the way to this red gate, then ride the moving platform there up to reach another silver fortune doll on top. I return to Izumo and go through the door past the coffee shop. This leads to Hagi, which is a pretty nothing area with a left and right fork. I go right and through the door to Akiyoshi-dai. Got a new enemy here with these kites that will try and fly into me. I make my way across this huge field to the northeast, where I can go through this fence and then following the long path down to another door into this cave, Shuhudo. There isn't much to traverse in this area, it's just a slightly curved path to a cracked wall at the end. I blow it up and go through to reach the game's third dungeon, the Festival Temple Castle. This was as far as I got in my previous playthrough attempt over a decade and a half ago. I either had something else to do or just didn't feel like going through another full dungeon already and couldn't save without a control pack. To start with, I ignore the stairs right in front of me and go through the gap in the fence to the left and then through another one going under the building, following the path to a door at the end. I go out through another gap in a fence and have to fight bamboo robots shooting cannonballs while avoiding giant rolling stones and jumping some gaps to the next door. In this room I swim around the spinning spiked balls to reach the moving platforms and climb them to find the dungeon's Mr. Elephant to get the map. Checking it out, I can see that the castle is separated into the cardinal directions instead of by floor like the others, and I'm starting off in the east. I drop down and go through the next door. Right in front of me is a locked door, but first I climb a ladder next to it and climb around the outside of the room to reach another silver fortune doll. I then drop down and take a door left from the one I entered through. This puts me in the southern quadrant around this huge temple in the middle. I get empty suits of armour attacking me, another gold locked door to the right, and a long path left to the door I need next. It puts me inside the temple with a large set of stairs opposite me. There's a huge tank to the side, but a few kunai attacks takes those out. I climb the stairs and go through the door to find more stairs. These ones lower as my weight presses down on one end, but it's slow enough to not be a problem. I go right and lower the steps on that end to raise the opposite end and reach the door there. I follow the next corridor to the next room with moving platforms over a pit. Rather than cross to the other side, in the middle at the right from where I entered is another door I can reach. This finally gets me my first silver key about 10 minutes after entering the dungeon. Back in the previous room I cross over to the other side of the gap and through the door there. I go up the stairs here but they just lead to some dumplings and a door back to the weighted stairs room. But before I go back and open the locked door, I return to the room with the pit again and climb this ladder I missed. The door up there takes me to a catwalk above the side corridors. Going right takes me to a silver fortune doll. Now I can go back to the first locked door I found and open it. In this next room I can go left or right. I choose to go left, skip the first door I find and go through the red one all the way at the end. It's around here that the music changes too, like the previous dungeons. In this room I follow the path all the way to the end to reach a new item, the kunai of severe cold for Sasuke. Using these can douse flames or cool hot surfaces. It can also be charged to throw 3 kunai at once. There's another path on the opposite side of this room, but I won't be able to reach it until later in the game. I go back the way I came and ignore all the other doors here for now, instead returning to the start of the dungeon. I finally go up those stairs in front of the entrance. I go to the right and avoid the crushers to reach another door. This room has burning hot platforms moving around, so I use Sasuke's new weapon to cool them and cross the gap and go through the door at the other end. I ignore the burning platform in the next room and go through another door and then another. This puts me higher up in the Rolling Stone room. Going left from the door I can jump down at the end to find a golden fortune doll. I go back 2 rooms to cool the platforms I skipped and get climbing a series of hot platforms to reach the next door at the top. This room has fox masks that breathe fire, but I just quickly run past them all to another door. Up here I cool another platform to reach the gold key for that other locked door in the southern quadrant. But first I return to the room past the first door I unlocked, which is the western quadrant by the way, and go through the door to the left I skipped earlier. This corridor has me dodging a lot of falling barrels to reach the next door. The room it leads to has a pool of water separating 3 more doors, but in the water are these drums I can bounce on, and so I use one to reach the door to the right. It takes me to Mr. Arrow so I can see where the boss is. Back in that room I bounce across to the opposite side and take the right door. Then I just turn a corner to find another. There's an item in here and some burning platforms. Ignore the platforms, just jump onto the back wall and then over the fence to reach an optional weapon, the meat saw hammer for a Bisumaru. Using it will turn any enemy drop into a dumpling to restore health. I then use the platform on the left to reach the door there. In here I can climb the barrels to jump the fence for a quick shortcut back to the main room of the western area. From there I can go all the way to the right to climb the ladder onto this roof and run all the way around the other end to reach another ladder. This one takes me to another of the few free surprise packs for an extra life. Then it's finally back to the southern quadrant to use that gold key. The room it leads to is a straightforward one, running up slopes and swimming to reach the next door. It takes me to this huge room with these moving fish-shaped platforms moving up and down. There's a few of them, along with a few ladders between them, and eventually I reach the top where there's a door. But first there's one more platform I can ride up even higher to find my 28th silver fortune doll and reach 3/4 of the game's maximum health. Then I go through the door. This next room is just a simple straight line to get inside his house. In here there's a sign giving me a hint for what's coming, and I drop down to reach the dungeon boss, the ghost robot Tsurami. She'll lunge at me and then get throwing these discs at me. I just have to run around the circular arena to avoid them. After every few throws she'll throw some red discs. These ones I can hit to send them back to damage her. It can be a bit tricky to get the timing right as I fail the first time and get hit. Then the second time I hit them, but late enough that I also take damage. And so I just keep that up until I do enough hits to kick off phase 2. She'll start throwing several green discs at once at rapid speed, ending on 2 slower red ones as normal. and eventually she'll start throwing the green ones all over the place instead of just aiming for me. Overall, if I had to choose a least favourite section of the game, it's this dungeon. It isn't bad at all, but I just preferred everything else in the game. I like the look of the other dungeons more, and while it isn't actually that long, this boss felt like it went on forever at the time. But in the end, I destroy the boss and she drops my next mysterious item, the Miracle Star. The third of the Peach Mountain Shoguns appears, Sharon, who drops that without the robot's power, they can no longer block, or block I guess, the passage to Kyushu. When Yae asks why they're even doing that, Sharon responds as if being interrogated. That's when the mystery woman from the opening introduces herself. After a bit of back and forth, through song she reveals her name to be Kitty Lily. Goemon tries to provoke her into a fight instead of hiding behind a hologram, but she says she's too famous for that as she'd be swamped by her fans. After Goemon says he's never even heard of her, she says that soon enough they'll want to see her on stage every day. She even lets them know that Kyushu has already become the stage they were searching for. Just before Sharon leaves, we also learn that Lily constantly sends the Shoguns out for minor errands and takes forever to pay them back. The two then leave and we know that our next destination is Kyushu. After returning to Akiyoshidai, I go back up the path I took to Shuhodo and just follow the mountain to the right to reach a door leading to the gateway viewpoint. As I follow the path, Goemon is stopped by Omitsu. She's also travelling to Kyushu for a food delivery, all the way from Oedo town. She says that their business has been featured in a magazine and now they're getting endless phone calls. No one tries to stop her when she continues towards Kyushu, as they're just in shock that after all the effort and detours they've had to take to get here, Omitsu just managed to walk it alone with no trouble. They get heading towards Kyushu themselves, but as soon as Goemon shouts to Omitsu that it's too dangerous, it's too late, as she's already crossed the bridge. A weird glow appears over the sky, and the entire landmass containing Kyushu is stolen up into the glow before both disappear. Goemon is displeased that the aliens have stolen his girlfriend, while everyone else is more bothered by all of Kyushu being gone. At this point we're at a dead end, as no one has any idea what to do next until Yae suggests we just cheat and ask the fortune teller. So I have Koryuta take me back to Fogipoke Village. This place is in much higher spirits with more upbeat music now their kidnapped children have been returned to them. The kids mention how the Shoguns were trying to teach them how to dance. At least one kid preferred that situation over being made to work the farm now that he's home. My main reason for coming here is this guy near the door to Compira Mountain, spawned by pressing all C buttons A and B at once on this screen. He sells some decorations for Goemon's house, 400 ryo for a Daruma doll, 600 ryo for a notice board, and 800 ryo for a replica of the robot doll enemy. I'm using a guide to make sure I don't miss items, and so I don't need to see Plasma Man to know what to do next. I fly back to Oedo town, and in Goemon's house I can see the decorations I bought. The Lord and Princess Yuki are also staying in this house while Oedo Castle stays transformed. That wasn't why I came back though. If you remember, at the start of the game we were told that Mokube moved out of one of the houses opposite Goemon's and the new tenant hadn't moved in yet. Well, now they have. The house has been converted into the muscle training gym. The owner says that after being done here I'll be able to move metal boxes. We've only seen one of those so far, all the way back in Musashi. All I have to do is pass this minigame. I'm surrounded by holes and several Oyakatas are rising from them towards these balloons. If they reach a balloon, it will pop. I have 99 seconds to keep all my balloons intact by throwing metal boxes at them. It's quite easy actually, just throw 2 or 3 boxes at one, move to the next one and do the same. It should just be enough and I get it on my second try after messing up the first. Completing the challenge against Goemon the sudden impact skill. So I return to Musashi and that metal box to the left of the entrance to try it out. It costs 10 ryo to use and gives Goemon Super Saiyan hair. I can now push that box aside and reach the door it was keeping me from. It takes me into the tunnel to the northeast one. Right in front of me are some moving platforms going off to the left of this hole that takes me to the tunnel to the northeast too. I climb the nearby ladder and jump across even more platforms to reach a long tunnel leading to another area where I can hit a switch to create more platforms and then drop down for another silver fortune doll. I go around the nearby tunnel to end up at the start and backtrack to where I dropped from, and then cross those new platforms I created to reach the door leading outside into Mutsu. There's a fork right away, but I just go straight forward to the door opposite where I entered. This takes me to Festival Village. I just love the whole Mutsu area. If you've watched certain other videos of mine, you should know by now that I love nighttime snowy areas in games, especially older ones. An old man on this first screen lets me know of a circle of stone pillars to the north. At the northern end I can talk to this guy who turns out to be Mokube's brother, saying that Mokube has developed his skills even further. That's an easily missed hint for something soon, and I'm not sure if there are any others. I then turn around and go through the door in the centre east of the screen. It leads to an area with a big hot spring. The first woman I speak to says that swimming up the waterfall of Kegon is said to turn one into a mermaid. The man I speak to next says that to get there I have to exit the village from the south and then turn right and go through the Uzen tunnel. A kid says that this place holds a festival every day of the year except for New Year's Day. That sounds unbelievably exhausting. In one of the houses, a guy says that UFOs are often seen over the stone circles of Ugo. Going through the other door here leads to the area containing the village's drum of the festival. This place is just here for flavour, but we do get to learn that the main drummer is haunted by the time he once tried to hit a dog. I return to the first screen and go through the northern door by Mokube's brother. On this screen, a woman says that the main route on Mount Fear is now blocked by ice, but there's an alternate route around it using a ladder. I go through the next door to end up at Mount Fear. Going to the left I can find this slope, but it's blocked. So I play the flute to fly back to Kai Highway's coffee shop and return to Mount Fuji. I climb all the way back to Mokube's house at the top and ask him to improve our weapons. Not only does he do so, he does it for free. This increases every character's weapons to level 2. More strength and range for all of them, and Yaya can now spin her sword to act as a shield. I return to Mount Fear and my new weapons can destroy the huge rock. What follows is a long sequence of ladders and slopes until I reach the house at the top. Inside lives a witch. She knows we're here because we're stuck on what to do next, as living here for 120 years has taught her how to face read a person's entire life story. She says she can see an old man with a strange look in a very dark place. The Bisumaru figures it must be the wise old man. She can use her powers to call him for 300 ryo. We pay and she manages to show a vision of the wise old man, presumably his spirit considering he was blown up. He has no idea where he is and Goemon tells him they want to save Kyushu but have no idea where to start. He tells them that Kyushu is floating out in space, and that the way to get out there is to collect the miracle items from the Flake Gang leaders, then take them to the Stone Circle in Ugo. We already have 3 and the wise man knows that there is only 1 left to get then. Back outside I can just run right down the slope to get back to the entrance of this area. I go back through Festival Village and leave through the southern entrance back into the first Mutsu screen, then take that fork in the path I skipped earlier to reach a door into the Uzen tunnel. This place is slightly more complex than the other tunnels we've seen so far. Once I cross the first bridge in here, I drop down into the water and swim southeast to a fork. I then turn west to find a silver fortune doll. I climb up all the nearby ladders and accidentally end up leaving the way I came. I go back in and with the map on it's an easy journey south to the exit to the waterfall of Kegon in Nikko. I have to inspect the sign if I want to take the Legend of the Mermaid challenge. I have to mash the A button to swim up to the top of the waterfall within the time limit. I have 50 seconds and also have to steer to avoid being hit by the falling Oyakatas. I get hit a couple times on the way to the top, but the worst part was being right at the top, as they keep on spawning right above me with no way to avoid them. But I still get it with 24 seconds remaining. This grants Yae the ability to transform into a mermaid while in water, letting me finally swim underwater. First thing I do with this new skill is jump in the water here and swim to the east to find a hole leading to a tunnel that takes me to a golden fortune doll. I've opened up a few more items to collect, so next I return to Yamato. I drop down into the water in the southeast near the Turtle Shrine entrance and swim through another hole to find a silver fortune doll. Next is in the basement of the Ghost Toys castle with the shogi tiles. Underwater here is a cage containing my 30-second silver fortune doll. Just 3 hearts to go for max health. Then in Festival Village I swim under the hot spring and into another tunnel to find a hidden shop on the other side. I don't care about the shop, but the silver fortune doll right next to it. With that item collection done, I return to Mount Fear and run past the slope going up it to find another door taking me to the Mutsu shoreline. A sign next to the water says that there's a gate under there requiring the pressing of the red button to open. But first I just check out this door to the north. It leads to the Ugo Stone Circle. Can't do anything here, so it's into that water. I swim about until I find the red button and then fail several attempts at dashing into it to press it. I can then swim through the gate I opened, which leads out into the Japan Sea. This place can be pretty confusing to navigate, so I'm thankful for the minimap. I start by going all the way north to find a surprise pack. From that spot I then go all the way south to find another silver fortune doll. From there I swim under a gap in the ice wall nearby to find a sunken ship I swim inside. This is the Gourmet Submarine Castle, the game's 4th dungeon. I swim up and go forward, which tricks me into being ejected back outside. So next time when I swim up I turn around and dash against the current, avoiding spiked mines until I reach another hole in the ceiling I can swim through. Once I reach the top I'm out of the water and taking a long lift ride up. Up here we see the reason for this place's name, with a table that has giant sushi on it. I jump up the floating ones to find the Mr. Elephant of this dungeon. I then drop down and go through the door right next to it. Here I have to jump the platforms over a burning floor to reach 2 doors, taking the left one. The next one has moving platforms leading to a door on the left and the right. The one on the left is locked and so I go right. The next room then has me chain piping across to the next. Here I go up the ramp to find giant moving plates acting as platforms, with pieces of robot sushi on some of them. I cross them to reach the silver key at the end. I then backtrack 2 rooms and unlock the door at the opposite end. This one is filled with giant balls I can climb to reach the Mr. Arrow. Right next to them is a lift going down. The water here is red, but it's not dangerous, nor is the food floating around it as I swim to the door down here. In the next room I just have to swim around to the door on the other side. There's another silver key in the corner opposite from where I entered, with the door it unlocks not being far away either. I swim to the surface of the water, go up the little ramp, and chain to the other end to find just a giant pudding surrounded by dumplings. Instead I have to swim to the opposite side of the room and drop down to the door there. This room has a burning floor and over it, conveyors and floating platforms. Going in a straight line from where I enter gets me a silver key, with the door it unlocks being in the corner opposite from where I entered. I get a new enemy in here, a crab walking around wearing a bowl. Across from the entrance is another locked door, so I climb up the ladder to the left to grab a gold key. There's also a silver locked door in a corner, but it'll have to wait as I unlock the gold door. This room grants me a weapon for Yae, the Yae Bazooka. I don't think I should have to explain this one. The silver key I need is also here. I try out the bazooka, but I don't find it that useful compared to the other money-using projectiles, so I use the key to unlock that door in the corner. This room is more water, so I swim down to the door at the bottom. I swim to the surface in the next room and ride the lift there up. A sign up here tells me to use Abisamaru's camera to reveal the hidden route, but first I drop back down and swim to this tiny hole I need the mini Ibisu skill for. Going through a couple takes me higher up in the room with the crab ball, and I run around to the end to find another surprise pack. Back to the section I abandoned, I use the camera and reveal the hidden floors, jumping across several giant fish dishes to reach the door at the end. There's two giant robot chefs in here that fight similar to the large robot dolls. Taking them both out gets me a silver key and I go through the other door in here. Right next to me is a door requiring a diamond key, so I jump in this nearby moving ball and ride it along to the middle, where I jump in the ball to the left and ride it to the two doors there, only one being unlocked. There's two more doors in here and I take the one opposite the one I entered through. The dolls with cannons have been powered up and their shots now create several explosions in a row. I climb these crates onto the wall and run all the way around to find another surprise pack. I haven't died once yet, by the way. The door underneath it takes me back to the room I needed to use the camera in, so I go back to the room with the locked doors, remembering I already have a silver key and unlock the one opposite where I returned from. In here I'm once again using the camera to reveal hidden paths to the diamond key. I can now unlock its door, leading to a lift I can ride up. Up here the camera screws me a bit and makes it very difficult to just get on this narrow catwalk, but when I do get on, it's just a straight line to the next door. In here I meet the last of the Peach Mountain Shoguns, Poron. He thinks we made it this far out of being a huge fan of his. Abisamaru says that they're just here for the miracle item, but Poron claims to have lost it somewhere in Zazentown back when he was in Kansai on vacation. Yae says they should get straight back to Zazentown then, but Lily interrupts. And after she's uninterrupting them, Dancing joins in as well to invite Goemon to hell, pissing off Lilith for interrupting. He just wanted to appear because he's been in very few scenes so far. They then argue, especially over Dancing's atrocious joke. Watching all this, Poron asks what he should be doing, to which Dancing tells him to use the device. Said device turns out to be a time bomb and Poron flees. There's no time to escape on foot, and so the only choice left is to use a Triton shell and have Impact bail them out, getting to watch this entire scene again. By the way, at the end you can use a stick to spin and jiggle his head. This time the skating part has Impact running through the sea, smashing houses, mountains, huge barrels and flying dioramas. When I was younger and looking up guides just to get an idea of what the rest of the game was like, I remember being surprised that there are only 3 times in the game where you call Impact. I just always assumed he'd be a much bigger presence in the game. Eventually I reach the end and I meet the dungeon boss, Tai Samba 2. He starts by swimming around and while jumping out of the water I get him with the chain pipe. By this point I'd looked up Impact's move list, but first time I pull off a rapid punch with C up, C down, C up and A too slowly and he gets away. He spits a single projectile at me and since I chain him right away I can't dodge it. On the 3rd time chaining him I actually pull the move off. It's pretty satisfying with a load of hits and ends with a big kick, dealing a lot of damage. Another of Tai Samba's attacks is to drop into the water and rise up right in front of me for a surprise hit. I try out the mouth laser. When the bar in the bottom middle is full, pressing the C buttons in a clockwise circle and then Z will have Impact fire a massive beam. But I miss first time. Once I get him to below 1200 health, he'll go underwater and Impact will follow. He tries to ram me with his head but I punch him down first. I get another rapid punch in and he tries a huge twister attack by spinning really fast. Thankfully it takes so long to get out and he doesn't move so I can finally hit him with the mouth laser. A nice 400 damage in one there. Then I pull him in for another rapid punch to finish him off. I like that whole section. The weird mix of submarine and giant food level made it more memorable than the previous dungeon and more Impact is always appreciated, especially now I know more moves. Impact drops us off and leaves to finish his next film in France. Since Poron told us where he lost it, I warp straight back to Zazentown, but since we have no idea where to start, I ask Benkei if he has it in his collection. He doesn't, but believes he may have it, a collector with a collection even bigger than his, Kihachi, who lives in the town's centre pond. I've been here before, I got a fortune doll here. I stand on the rock in the front of the pond and Kihachi reveals himself. Turns out he's a kappa. We ask him if he picked up anything strange lately, and he assumes we mean an object he picked up a few days ago. Goemon asks for it, but Kihachi wants something in return. His first request is impossible, and when Yae asks again, he finds himself unable to turn down the request of the woman he finds cute. So he changes his own request to simply bringing him his favourite food, although he won't tell us what it is. But if I talk to him a second time, he'll just straight up tell me it's cucumber, and if I do it again, he specifies the cucumber that the priest's son makes. So I head over to the Golden Temple and ask the priest where his son is. His son has gone to watch the big sacred fire at Mount Yoigatake, but reaching him won't be that simple, as only one who can jump huge heights will be able to find him. He tells me that there's a training gym behind a locked door in Bizen and gives me the key. I passed this door when I first entered Bizen last time, but now I can get inside. The man inside offers the training for Sasuke. It's a huge platforming challenge up this pole with a 99-second time limit. First is simple platforms, some receding into the pole, then up a ramp to platforms moving around it, and these triangular bits put there to push me off if I collide with them. But when I reach the next ramp, I keep messing up, usually pressing jump too late and sliding off. I keep making the same mistake and run out of time. But I make it next time after a final section with many moving platforms. With that, I now have Sasuke's flying spell and each spell for all 4 characters. With my new super jump, I've opened up a couple more items to collect as well. First I return to Festival Temple Castle, and in the room where I found Sasuke's kunai of severe cold, I can jump over the fence keeping me in and reach this area on the other side. I climb the ladder at the end up to this roof, and at the other end from there use the super jump to reach a silver fortune doll. Back in Zazen Town, while around this point in the river, I can super jump through a hole and find my 36th silver fortune doll for more health. Next to the door leading to the Golden Temple is one last door I haven't talked about yet. It takes me to this bridge going up to another door that takes me to Mount Yoigatake. I need the super jump to reach this moving platform that takes me to the priest's son. I ask him for the cucumber, but it's going to cost me 800 ryo, and I just about have enough. I gain the quality cucumber and return to Kihachi for the trade, obtaining the miracle snow. And that's all 4 miracle items obtained. I also made sure to get the surprise pack hidden behind the key coffee shop first. But after double checking that I wasn't missing anything else, it's now time to return to the stone circle in Ugo. I stand on the altar and offer all 4 items to open the path into space. The Pemo Pemo god speaks to me and warns me that this is a point of no return. Once I set off into space to save Kyushu, I can't come back. I'm not sure why they even put a point of no return in this game, but I've done everything I can down here anyway. I'm shot up into the sky and placed in the game's final dungeon, the gorgeous musical castle. To start with, I have guys in Oni masks throwing hammers at me. The door right in front of me is locked, so I go through the one left of it. The next room is small and I go through the next door. It leads to a room filled with catwalks. But first I drop down to the bottom and go through the door there. It takes me to a room where I'm running up a ramp while jumping gaps and avoiding huge blades sliding down towards me. The door at the top takes me to a flatter room where the blades are coming from both walls at differing heights, making them harder to dodge. The door at the other end then lets me drop back down into the room before the catwalk so I can try them again. This time I jump across them and make my way up the screen to find another locked door. Just a bit past it I can platform to find the silver key that unlocks it. The room behind it has a lava floor with big moving fans as platforms to cross it with. In the opposite corner is the gold key I was looking for. I return to the dungeon's first room and use it to unlock the door there. This next room has a higher level but I can't reach it just yet and go through the next door. It leads to more fan platforms leading to a locked door, so instead I drop down the platforms and grab a silver fortune doll off to the side. I then drop all the way to the bottom to find another door. The water here looks like it may damage you, but it's actually just a moving stage decoration. Nothing to do here but go through the next door. The room it leads to sees me bouncing up a few drums to reach the next door at the top. This puts me in the higher up section of the room a few screens back. I cross the platforms to find the Mr. Elephant and then use sudden impact to push down the box so I can chain across to the gold key. With it I can get to the door across the fan platforms and unlock it. Right in front of me is a ramp down to another locked door. First I get on this stage behind it for another silver fortune doll. Also on this stage is a small hole to use the mini Ibisu on. It takes me into the room with the gold key I need, so I use it to unlock the door. It takes me to some more hammer guys in between me and the next door. This next room has several rotating and moving blocks as platforms. I have to keep climbing them with the use of Sasuke's super jump to reach a diamond key. I return to the room with the stage and climb the ladder next to it. On the opposite side at the top I hit a switch to lower some stairs leading to the door requiring the diamond key. It takes me to a higher up section of the room I found my last gold key. Here I have to run against the stage water while avoiding decorative waves to get to the next door. There's a large block in here and a switch next to it that turns said block into several platforms going up. I get to the top and swim across the water to find the game's final Mr. Arrow. The door is next to it, but first there's a silver fortune doll off to the side on a platform requiring the super jump. I found this one really tricky to get to, and it took a couple minutes before I got the right angle for Sasuke to grab the ledge so I could get it. With that I can finally go through the door, which takes me outside. This is Sogen Town, part of Kyushu. I go through the gate and find these new spinning top dolls that on death can release these fawned roses that can attach to you and cause damage over time. Soon after I find a shop I can enter. The people inside don't seem too fussed about being abducted. One woman has even been watching the Peach Mountain show twice a day, every day. Going back outside and following the path some more takes me to an inn. More people are turning out to be fans of the Peach Mountain Shoguns. Back outside I follow the path once again to find another shop. Omisu is in here, still holding that same tray of dumplings. Goemon is so happy to see her he screams her name in her face. She's not that bothered by the whole experience. After talking for a bit, Ebisamaru wonders where Dancing and Lily are, and Omisu says she heard they were behind the doors nearby. But the door is rigid and can't be opened easily. She knows someone who can help though and says he's at the restaurant. The restaurant is just next door. The guy Omitsu was talking about turns out to be the wise old man. Turns out he wasn't killed when Baron blew up his house in Iga. We get no answer on whose spirit the witch called either. He was actually kidnapped first and they bribed him into giving them mechanical parts and robots in exchange for car magazines and posters, actually just porn. Goemon is unimpressed and Wise Man tries to backpedal and say the porn was forced upon him despite his best attempts to resist. But this does mean he's responsible for all the robots we've been fighting throughout the game. When Goemon asks why they blew up his house then, this is the first he's heard of it. Of course his lifelong porn collection being destroyed is what angers him most. It does bring up the question of why they did blow up his house, but that doesn't get answered. But the wise man is so angry he takes everyone's weapons and powers them all up to the strongest forms, meaning I can now destroy the door Omitsu mentioned. With that done, I run past the shop and find these weapons can now destroy even large enemies in one swing. I smash through the door and go through another to enter the second half of the gorgeous musical castle. First up there are these dancing pairs of legs I can cut up. They don't even try defending themselves. There's a locked door in front of me, so I go up the stairs to the right and ignore the doors for now, instead jumping into the painting. In this hidden room is the final golden fortune doll in the game, just the one silver one left now. I go back and take the door right of the entrance. In here I jump across these triangular platforms to the next room. But it just leads to a slope I can't go up, so instead I return to the first room and go through the left door. I cross more platforms to reach two more doors. I take the one to the front to a room filled with conveyors. I jump across them and make my way to a switch that brings out a floor below the next door so that I can super jump to it. In this room I run across the wall of the lava to find another switch that creates another floor under another door to let me through. Next is just a long corridor to the next room. I hit another switch that activates a lift that takes me all the way to the top where the diamond key is waiting. There's also more stairs to another door up here. On the opposite end is the top of the slope I mentioned a little earlier. So it's back to the first room and unlocking that door. Then in the next room it's a straight line to the next door. This next room has a fork halfway through. Going straight and following that path all the way takes me to the 40th and final silver fortune doll in the game, granting me both maximum health and something extra once I beat the game. That's one of the reasons why I don't like there being a point of no return at this point. Didn't get all the fortune dolls beforehand? Fuck you, start the game again. But anyway, the side path of the fork takes me to the next door. The room it leads to has this huge rotating tunnel I have to run through with random holes in it. It's easier though, and I reach the ladder at the end leading to the next door. This takes me into the Peach Mountain main hall. I approach the stage in the middle to be greeted by Dancing and Lily. At first it seems like they're preparing to take the team on together, but it turns out their intention is to turn the party into their fans, and so their song, Gorgeous My Stage, starts. It's all over the top with the robot dolls taking part and the Flake Gang leaders providing backing vocals. It's pretty short though, and when it's done, Goemon doesn't know how to react, while Ebisamaru was into it and feels he may be turning into a fan. Meanwhile, Yae and Sasuke point out that Dancing and Lily have taken off and the castle starts shaking, another bomb having been set off. Once again, the only way of escape is to use a Triton shell and have impact pick us up. This time, the final impact sequence starts us off in a long tunnel taking on all sorts of mechanical weapons and smashing down walls, needing to jump over lasers. I've already mentioned being surprised at there only being 3 impact sequences, but another surprise on top of that is how spaced out they are. The first one is really early on in the game, and then nothing until right at the end where the last 2 are very close together. There's not much to say about these parts, and once we reach the end, Impact jumps out into space. And out in space, we finally get to take on that peach-shaped UFO we saw in the opening, the one that hit Oedo Castle. This is the Great Peach Mountain battleship Balbera. This impact fight is different from the others. The game moves Impact around for me and I had to take out individual parts of the ship. It starts by releasing smaller flying Peaches and then follows it up with green laser balls I can punch or shoot out. It has these 6 cannons that each fire spiked bombs I can punch to gain more yaw. With the chain pipe I take out the red core to remove the lasers and then get working on the cannons. But Impact drifts down to the side where this leaf turns around to reveal 3 cannons of its own that each fire coloured balls I can punch for yaw. I drift back to the middle and take out 2 cannons before moving to the opposite leaf which does the same thing, making sure to get some shots in on it before it stops firing. I take out the 3rd cannon as I move back to the left leaf and destroy it, noticing I've gone down and am getting shot at by the lower cannons. I get some shots back in as I move back up and take out a 4th cannon. The Peach then opens up to reveal more smaller Peaches, giving the chance to shoot inside and cause actual damage that lowers the enemy health. But it's 5 damage per shot and I only deal 35 damage before it closes. I take out a 5th cannon and then the other leaf. I destroy the final cannon on the Peach, just leaving the segment below which also doesn't last much longer. Only the Peach remains now, and to make it open I have to destroy all the smaller ones to prompt it to release more. This is the perfect chance to use the mouth laser, but aiming is a bit tricky due to Impact always drifting. So by the time I've started charging the laser I've moved just out of range and missed the middle. And it keeps happening. My 2nd and 3rd successful attempts at firing the laser miss as well for the same reason. And then on my 4th try it closes before I fire. So instead I just do it the slow way by building up yaw from punching the small Peach's cannonballs and then unloading when it opens. The other attempts at the laser also fail and I eventually take out the ship. But Dancing and Lily are still alive, as they had a mech ready inside that ship. The true final boss, D'Etoile. D'Etoile moves around the screen faster than any other boss while firing out those cannonballs, meaning missing a chain pipe is an almost guaranteed punish. But my main strategy is pretty much the same as it was for Tai Samba, chain it in and then rapid punch. But D'Etoile can also put a shield up and has a very fast tail attack that's tough to react to, especially when not on the side of the screen you're looking at. Plus ramming into me with the shield, which tends to happen when I'm missing with the chain pipe again. The chain pipe is also blocked by said shield. Sounds obvious but I still tried it anyway. In the end I get my first and only death in this entire playthrough. The 2nd attempt goes a lot smoother, mainly due to luck. Most of my chain pipes connect as D'Etoile just doesn't try to dodge them as much. And it also just keeps lowering down right in front of me to make it easier to grab. When at around 800 health, it starts charging this large meteor attack, but using the mouth laser renders it useless and gets a ton of damage in. It's easy to connect with here since D'Etoile is stationary for so long. After that, just a couple more chains and rapid punches is enough to take it down. The 2 can't believe they've lost, but Dancing warns that as long as they have the instant stage beam, they can still win. Unfortunately for them, Impact hits them with one more laser, destroying D'Etoile and sending Dancing and Lily screaming off into space. Possibly to their death, I don't know. With their enemies defeated, the team fly Impact home. With Japan at peace, they wonder how to get Kyushu back down from space. They don't have to worry as it crashed back down into place with no horrific side effects. Yae reasons that the bomb in the castle brought it back down. Sasuke says they need to pick up Amitsu and the wise old man. But Goemon gets distracted by a horde of screaming women approaching them. Goemon figures they're fans of his for them being the heroes who saved Japan. Goemon and Ibisumaru can't wait for their adoration, but Yae doesn't think that's the case. And she's right. These are all fans of Dancing and Lily, and they want Goemon's head for preventing them from ever being able to see their show. And the game ends there and cuts to the credits before we can see the bloodbath. After the credits, for collecting every fortune doll, I've unlocked the consecutive fighting large boss mode. Basically a boss rush of the 4 Impact bosses, where I must clear all 4 on 1 life with no healing between fights. Knowing the full moveset means that Kashiwagi just gets completely destroyed, but the problem is I lose over half my health on Tai Samba, and then I finish Balbera with just 30 health left, meaning D'Etoile finishes me. Then on my 2nd attempt I finish Balbera with 220 health left, but this time, of all places, is where I get my only game crash of this playthrough. I make it back to D'Etoile with the exact same health and defeat it this time. This grants me a cheesy congratulations screen. I think it may add the last few songs to the sound test, but don't quote me on that. And that's Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. I know I've said in several videos now how satisfying it has been to go back to an old game from my youth and get closure by finishing it, but none compared to this time. Those other games were a case of my own skill keeping me away from the rest of the game, but in this case it was just not owning the right stuff. This is such a fun game, and being able to play it without the knowledge all my progress would be lost when I switched it off made me enjoy it even more. The only real issue I had while playing the game was the camera at times, and even then it was quite rare to give me problems compared to other games of its time. It had a big world for the N64, but not too big that it was boring to traverse, just long enough to appreciate the environment and its music before you move on. And that soundtrack. I've nowhere near played most of the N64 games, but I feel confident in saying this game's soundtrack would be in the top 10. I loved the overall tone of the game and just how out there it was, with all the anachronisms ranging from giant robots to people having TV and phones centuries too early. Some of the actual jokes were hit and miss, but since making the first video I did learn that the original Japanese script sometimes used quite dated insults that have since started to fall out of favour, and at least one I believe would be considered a slur today. I don't speak Japanese and don't know everything, but that seems to be the gist from the admittedly little I've read. But with that in mind, I'd gladly take the naff localised jokes over actual hateful language. I always felt it a shame that so few games from this series made it out of Japan. Just 5 games when they were new, with one each not coming to PAL or North American territories. The original arcade game has since been made available to make 6, but that's still a huge amount just not released outside Japan. I guess they were worried people may find them too Japanese, and I can't speak for everyone, but that's what made this game stand out from the rest of the N64 library I tried at the time. I'd like to try out some more games. I have one of the Game Boy games, a Wii U download of Legend of the Mystical Ninja, and I could download the Arcade Archives version of the original if I want. Sadly, this game's sequel is out of my price range for a PAL copy. I almost had the chance to get Mystical Ninja 2 as a 7th birthday present, but the family friend who was buying was worried I'd find it too strange, so I had to settle for Rugrats Treasure Hunt instead. But as for this game, loved it. Not my favourite N64 game ever, but my favourite of the ones I've played for this channel so far. I've had a great time every time I've played it.